Welcome to this week's edition of Rugby Unfiltered. I'm your host, Jan de Koning, and with me, as always, Eugene Elof. Loffie, welcome.
Hey Jan, great to be back and great to talk rugby again, mate.
Yeah, it's going to be an interesting podcast and an exclusive because we got some great video from John Dobson about the infamous croc roll that could or potentially could have ended Deon Fourie's career. And we'll get into the stack of it. But the reality is croc rolls have become, first there was a big thing about head on head contact. Then there was a thing about illegal scrumming. And there's always something going on. But at the moment, the thing is croc rolls, simply because it's such a dangerous aspect of the game. And I know it's difficult. You can never speak about players' intention, but you can always speak about the outcome and what can be done to remove it. So I think before we get to John Dobson and his views, I think I just want to share with the readers, the viewers, a clip of what a croc roll actually is, just not to be confused, because I know some people get confused with a neck roll or a neck grab and a neck pull, but what is actually a croc roll and what constitutes? So here's a nice video explanation of what a croc roll is, and then we'll discuss the ins and outs of this.
What is the croc roll? What does it look like? And what are we allowed and not allowed to do? So, first of all, we have a jackler come in and over. Perfect, right? Good position. So, the croc roll would be this, right? If I stand round this side, player comes in, the arriving player, he needs to destabilise this jackler. He slams down onto the lower back hips area and wraps round tight and then rolls out across this outstretched knee, right? Perfect, man, that's good. All right, so literally, that is the croc roll, and it's now banned and not allowed. Now, that would be your twist. That would be a croc roll with a twist, where the player's gone long, but he's slammed down onto the hips, so there's no drive or dive. We always talk about drive, not dive. In this situation here, the player is putting all his weight down onto the hips and lower back of the jackler. He's then wrapping around the waist, low as he can, and he's rolling out over the foot. So let's just see it one more time. We'll just go through it in slow motion. So jackler's in, attempting to lift, in he comes, slams down here, rolls out, and literally falls onto this outstretched knee. And that's where we're getting all our problems. The other one is, instead of twisting or that clamp, what he's doing is he's pulling. So he's actually gone further past the body, but he takes this hand here. Sometimes it ends up round the neck, which is illegal anyway, the referee would pick that up, or he drags or pulls from pretty much underneath the armpit where there's an anchor point, and he still drags the body across, but you've gone past it, and again, there you go, you're landing on that outside leg, and this time it's a pulling action, and that's just as dangerous. So those two techniques have now gone from the game.
Eugene, I think that video is self-explanatory. That people now understand what it means by a croc roll. And because they're doing it so slow, you can actually see how dangerous it is. Now, in a dynamic game like rugby, it takes a split second and you destroy somebody's career. Ronaldo Botma had his career ended with a croc roll in the 2015 World Cup. So he was captain of Namibia in the 2015 World Cup. And a croc roll like this ended his career. So if people don't understand how serious and dangerous this is, it's ended careers before, and it almost certainly could have ended Deon Fourie's career as well. So, Eugene, yeah, I mean, John Dobson has an interesting take, and he's quite deliberate about what should and should not be done with croc rolls and why it's so dangerous. So I think the best for us to do is listen to John Dobson, and then we'll analyze or assess what John said.
Thanks, Jan. I think it's fair to say, as the Stormers, we were hell of a disappointed with what happened to Deon on Saturday or Friday night. I don't think any player goes out to try and injure a player like that, but it is something that needs to be removed from our game. I'll go into the logic of it now, but it's very dangerous. In the same way we've been, as a game, been quite rigorous about dealing with head contact. I think this is a big part of the game, for the shape of the game, as much as player safety. I think what I mean by the shape of the game is that if we're going to allow this, obviously they cause hell of a bad injuries. It's your ACL or your medial ligaments or broken leg or tibia, as we've had. Or especially on a 4G where your studs can't move when you get twisted like that. It means that the jacklers who are trained, the only way you can steal a ball is to go in low, lock your legs. You can't, by law, support yourself in your hands. So all your weight's on your legs. You have to be on your feet. You can't be using your knee on the ground or anything. That's the law. So you've got to have all your weight and you've got to withstand the cleans, keeping your feet locked into the ground and on your feet. So the pressure on your leg when those cleaners hits is enormous. So the only consequence of not dealing with this or fixing it or getting rid of it out of the game is that people aren't going to jackal or go for the turnover, which means that every breakdown is secure, which means that the feel of the game will become crash bash, much more rugby league, because you won't lose the ball in a breakdown unless you drop it, because nobody will risk stealing it. And then without the jeopardy of the breakdown turnover, the game will become a lot more boring, and I would suggest even more dangerous because of the increased number of collisions, and certainly worse as a spectacle, given the end of turnovers or breakdown turnovers, if you like. So that component of the shape of the game, and then just how dangerous it is to the player. The law requires that guy to be on his feet low, attacking the ball, not supporting his body, supporting his own body weight, and then we attack the lower leg, and that's just incredibly dangerous. I think Andrew Piardi is an excellent referee. I think the framework they refereed the Six Nations was that wasn't an automatic red. So he probably got that spot on, but I think it's something the game should look at, that this doesn't exist in rugby. And I think there are lots of games where they're almost, a lot of them, whether it's against, we saw more on Friday night, and maybe there's some that we do and other teams do. There are lots of almosts. We've just got Keke Marabi coming back with, I think, broken his leg in a similar situation, and I think other teams can point to, So unless this gets out of the game, I think it's got to go and pick the shape of the game. And, Keke Marabi was out for a year. Dion hasn't got the luxury of a year. Thank God it's not that serious. So I think it's something that the game really, really needs to, maybe it's got to become an automatic red. And again, I accept the guy didn't do it with any form of intent, but if we don't protect the stealers, then they're going to be gone from the game.
Yes, Jan, currently that is on the lips of everybody, croc roll and neck roll. And I think at the end of the day, it's all about safety of the game. And I feel for Dion and I feel for guys like Ronaldo, but other guys, there are more players that also had career-ending injuries coming from a different tackle or what contact situation. But let's talk about this. You as a coach, no coach coaches a player to do a croc roll or deliberately hurt somebody and write them off. And no player deliberately would go to try and write you off. Well, I guess I'm talking objectively here now from a coaching point of view. So it's at the breakdown. It's also the most difficult for referees to referee. But I mean, when you approach that ruck, your job is to secure the ball, to get the threat away from the ball. It doesn't matter how. So you do a legal clean out, you go low, you wrap, and you turn the body away so the threat is away. And unfortunately, you don't know when the legs are static or maybe can't move. And that's where the injuries come from, taking the body away to the other side. So it's not deliberately done. But I think Dobbo's got a valid point in terms of the dangers and what's going to happen. The jackal's not going to go in for a steal anymore. And it's unfortunate that these accidents happen, but rugby is a contact sport, and that's one of the things that can happen. I guess what we want is just consistent refereeing of the croc roll, the neck roll, and dangerous play.
Yeah. Eugene, I do agree with John Dobson to some extent. And I want to touch on a few other aspects. So like we had the grass cutter, remember the grass cutter, where the guy just dived straight at the guy, ball carrier's knees. They ruled that out because they said you have to grasp, you actually have to wrap your arms around the opposing player or the ball carrier to avoid, and it still happens. You still see guys shoulder first into the guy's knee because he wants to prevent the strong ball carrier from making ground. Then there's also the issue around the scrums. You know, when one team dominates and other teams don't dominate, they want to take. So they take the spirit of the game away. You know, if you eliminate the scrums, you eliminate the mauls, because there was a move to eliminate the mauls. And then they wanted to bring back the protection for the high kicks because they wanted to reintroduce that shield. Now you've got a free contest, two guys jumping for the ball in the air. I think that makes it more exciting. When there's a contest, always when there's a contest, that's what makes this game exciting. If we want to take the contest out of it, we take the contest out of the maul, we take the contest out of the scrum, we take the contest out of the breakdown. And that's where I agree with John Dobson. Then we are turning rugby union into rugby league. Then it's a sport that I don't want to support because I play rugby because it's a game for all shapes and sizes, not a game for 13 180-pound, 100 kilogram behemoths that run at each other and take it through phases, and you don't have a chance of stealing the ball. And it's just, to me, rugby league's a boring game. And I know there's a lot of people that disagree, and it's their opinion. They love rugby. People love basketball. They love American football. They love soccer, cricket, tennis. There's all sorts of different sports. If you like rugby league, it's your game. Please go ahead and enjoy it. I don't like rugby league. I enjoy rugby union, and that's my passion.
Yeah, Jan, I think one must, you're going to stop watching rugby, it seems like, one of these days. I think we must not be over-emotional about it. I think World Rugby tries to make the game as safe as possible because now we're going to have a discussion about that very soon on one of our podcasts, the health of the players. And to me as an ex-coach, that is the most important thing of all, the health and of the rugby players. And we as South Africans have been feeling that World Rugby has been gunning us. If we hammer the guys in the scrums, they want to change the scrums. If we hammer the guys in the mauls, they want to change the mauls. So we take it personal. That's because of the style we're playing. But I don't necessarily think that is so, Jan. I think at the end of the day, they are just trying their best to make it a safe game. However, I would suggest to them that they should get in some coaches and some referees from outside their business itself to maybe have a workshop and talk it through. Because it's still coming back to what I said earlier, it is a contact sport, and that's what attracts the people as well. The team that physically can control the game. There's nothing better if you control a game and you scrum the guys under Kassan and stuff like that, but the players' health is a big thing.
Eugene, maybe that's a good point to move on to URC round 18, the final round of league action of the URC, and a big round. I mean, it's a vital round. I know 4 teams have secured their playoff spots. So that's Glasgow, the Stormers, the Bulls, and Leinster. They all secured quarterfinal spots, but they're still playing for positions. The last round depends. The Stormers can still finish first. The Bulls can still finish second. Glasgow can finish first. So there's a lot to play for in that round. And then we've got 5 other teams that are vying for the 4 remaining spots. And that includes the Lions. It includes Munster, Ulster, Connacht, and Cardiff. Now, Cardiff are playing the Stormers. It's a big, big, big game because Cardiff is desperate. They want to get into the playoffs because that means European Champions Cup next year. Connacht is the same thing. They also want to. So, and the same with Munster and Ulster. So, and the Lions, just remember, and I think maybe we start with this one, your favorite team, the Lions. They are so close to making history. Their goal has always been just to get into the playoffs because that gives them a chance to play in the Champions Cup next year. But they still need 2 points to secure their spot. It could be another season, and that's not because I'm negative, and I don't want to attack Cash or any of the guys or the players. And I know Franco, they tried to play it down when I sat in a press conference yesterday. The reality is, if something goes wrong and it happens like it did last week against Leinster, and they don't get their game right, they don't enforce their game, they might as well easily miss out on another playoff spot in the European Champions Cup by a single point. They can miss out by a single point. There'll be another season of 1 point, a bonus point somewhere, or a draw somewhere, or a kick, or a missed tackle somewhere. There's so many. So that's why their game against Munster is so vital on Saturday.
Yeah, Jan. Again, you've given us a lot of information now. I just, first of all, think it's fantastic for South Africa to have 3 teams that are in the running, and it can be 4. and I would just like to start with the Stormers. I think the Stormers are there. They're ready. If they would look at the review of the game, the only thing that will cost them in the way forward is their game discipline. And I'm not referring to any players. Game discipline will be the thing. I'm pretty sure that they're going to win Cardiff. The Bulls, to me, is currently the most consistent side we have. But I want to see, yes, the Lions. I think Cash and them, the build-up there is perfectly, but it was always going to be difficult there. And maybe also in their review, talking about reviews, if you look at what happened and they would look at the game, they'll think that quickly their kicking game was not working. They could have changed to something else. But I'm sure they're on top of it, and I'm sure the Lions are going to win Munster this weekend. We're going to have a good weekend again coming with South African teams.
Well, let me put it this way. I hope the Lions win, because then I'll feel good about it as well. And as critical as I've been of Cash and the team and administration at the Lions, I, for one, wish them good luck, and hopefully they can prove me wrong again. As Rudolf Story said in the media, and I'm one of those naysayers, Rudolf, but I had good reason to be a naysayer. They've proved the naysayers wrong, so go prove me wrong on Saturday, Rudolf and Cash and the entire team. And then obviously the Bulls. I mean, the Bulls can still finish second. They're playing Benetton, and it's not going to be an easy game, even though they're at Loftus. But I think the Bulls are in a good shape. And given the number of Springboks that was just named in Rassie's latest alignment camp, you got to put your money on the Bulls to get 5 points out of this game.
No, I think the Bulls are going to hammer them. I think they're going to hammer Benetton. They're in a good headspace. They're playing good rugby. So that's why I think it's going to be a good weekend for South African rugby in that international competition. But we cannot end this podcast without talking about the Junior Springboks, which is my
I agree with you. I agree with you 100%. And you're the expert. Please enlighten me.
I won't say I'm an expert, but I've had experience. I think in all the years of junior rugby and the junior teams, this is a very, very special team. And the way they are very well coached by Kevin Foote and Baron Pieterse and the coaching team, their game discipline. I'm happy they won that competition. And I'm also happy, and it might sound weird, that it was a draw, because we were playing so well and putting up such big scores against Australia and Argentina that you might become a little bit composed and relaxing. And why I'm saying that is the World Cup this year is in Georgia. So besides the weather that's difficult, or that's going to be different, it's going to be a total different game. And a draw for us will just bring the guys back to the ground. Not that I think they were flying, and realize that you don't rock up and win a World Cup because you're a good team. You have to go play and win it. And I think we got the team to do it. I think taking that in consideration, I just want to end off what I want to say about junior rugby in our country. I think junior rugby in our country is so strong, and we've discussed it already at schools level, and now with this at junior provincial level and now junior international level. I think we're sending a message out there right from Rassie right to the bottom, and there's a golden thread, not thread, of our teams. Look at the sevens, where they are. Look where the senior team is. Swys de Bruyn is doing great stuff with the ladies team and this team. So yeah, rugby in our country is looking very healthy currently.
Eugene, before we sign off, I want to sign off with the Russia's latest alignment camp squad announcement. But we also got the SA Cup, which is in the semi-finals. Cheetahs qualified with a missed kick. Of all things, shame. It's you got to feel for that kicker when misses a conversion like that. But I'm sure he's gained a lot of fans in Bloemfontein because that missed kick saved the Cheetahs, and the Cheetahs are in the Currie Cup this year. And for their sins, the Cheetahs now travel to Nelspruit to face the Pumas on Saturday in a one semi-final. And Griquas are hosting Boland, your other favorite team, in the other semi-final on Saturday.
Yes, Jan, maybe that's a very good discussion to end off with, with the argument that the Currie Cup doesn't have a lot of following anymore, and it's become complacent, etc., because of all the competitions currently running. And it could be so, but it's any coach's dream to win a Currie Cup. Doesn't matter where. I think it's maybe they should look at the system. I feel for SVD. Heineke has done a fantastic job in one season with SVD, and I feel for them. But also I'm happy for France and everyone them that they get this opportunity to use it. But I think SARU probably needs to look at the competition. Maybe let everyone play a first round to play off to see who can play a Currie Cup. Not necessarily that the 4 big unions go through automatically. Let them also play to qualify. I think that would be more fair. But to all the teams playing this weekend, well done. And I'm glad the guys could keep their jobs there in Bloemfontein. And I'm sure Bloemfontein is orange again.
Eugene, I agree with you 100%. If Griquas, as defending champions, have to qualify to play in the Currie Cup, so should the Lions, the Bulls, the Stormers, and the Sharks. If they have to play the under-23 teams, because there was this under-23 competition, go play your under-23 teams in the SA Cup and then qualify for the Currie Cup. You make it the SA Cup a far more valuable competition, because now the challenge is on for all the unions. So yeah, I agree with you. Finally, I want to finish off on Rassie's latest Springbok alignment camp, which was announced today. And the interesting names for me is, obviously we'll see the couple of Stormers, an interesting thing. But Riley Norton, the baby Bok captain, he's definitely there. And we know what it is. It's grooming him for future Springbok colours. I mean, he's not doesn't mean he's going to get a cap this year, but at least he understands the system. He's part of the system. And then, you know, Mashashe, that's an interesting one, that Lions player that's really making his mark at the moment, that flank. And then obviously all the Bulls. I mean, you've got Cameron, Johan Grobler, Cameron Hanekom, Elrich Louw, Wilco Louw, although Wilco Louw is actually a Stormer already. Roan Nortje, Gerard Steenekamp, Marco van Staden, Jan-Hendrik Wessels, Kobus Wiese, and then Emmanuel Chuchuka, not Vincent, Emmanuel Chuchuka. And then in the back line, the interesting ones for me, Emrose Papier, and you will love this one because I know you're an Emrose fan. Emrose Papier finally got his call up. So I think he's played, as Rassie used to say, he's bashed the door down. He didn't knock on the door, he bashed the door down. And then obviously Siyaya is there. All the regulars. Hasim Piet is there, which we all know he's a good enough player, but he's also one for the future. I think Piet is also one for the future. And then there's the interesting thing for me, lastly, before I let you finish with it. The interesting thing for me is that there's only 2 Stormers back, Sasha and Damian Willemse. So for a team like the Stormers to only have 2 backs, it says that maybe there's something wrong in their backline, or their coaching, or their attack, or maybe, I don't know. There's a lot of things you can say about selection, but Rassie clearly has a plan.
Yeah, Jan, every coach has got his own way and of doing things, his own strategy and planning. And what I like about what Rassie does is he involves the juniors. He brings in the Riley Nortons and the Marcus Miller and those youngsters. They come, he brings them into the system. And that's how a pipeline works. You know, also for them, it's reward for their hard work, and they can see what it's about. So yeah, and it gives him also the opportunity to see how they stand up to that pace of the rugby, because that's the big difference. You know, the higher up you play, the quicker the pace, the less the space for mistakes and so on. So yeah, I think Rassie's got it so right to know, you know, the next group coming through. So yeah, we wish them all well with their preparation, and they must know that we're behind them, regardless.
Well, Eugene, that's a very good note to finish off on. So from myself, Jan de Koning, your host, and my co-host,
Lofi, we say goodbye and enjoy the rugby.
Cheers till next week.